Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Hub. Today's story is one of my favorites.
You know how they say lightning never strikes twice? Well, whoever said that never met Juliana Bailey on a Tuesday night in Denver General's waiting room. I was there because my barista Miguel had slipped on ice outside my cafe and needed stitches. She was there clutching a manuscript like it was the last lifeboat on the Titanic. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps. The coffee machine in the corner gurgled something that could generously be called brown water. I watched this woman dark hair escaping from what had probably been a knee bun hours ago. Fingers stained with ink, exhaustion carved into every line of her face stare at that machine like it had personally betrayed her. Don't, I said, not looking up from my book. Trust me, I'm a professional. She turned, and I got my first real look at her eyes, green, not just green the kind of green you see in old forests, deep and mysterious and a little dangerous. Professional what? Coffee maker? I pulled out my thermos. Emergency stash. Fair trade, single origin, roasted this morning. I poured her a cup, steam curling between us like a question mark. Juliana's eyes widened when she tasted my brew. Holy shit, you made this? I nodded. I own a cafe. This is my emergency stash. She stared at me like I'd handed her the Holy Grail, and then she burst into tears. Not delicate, ladylike tears, real tears. The kind that come from somewhere, deep and desperate. I'm not great with crying people. I make coffee. Not miracles, but something about her made me slide closer on those uncomfortable plastic chairs. Want to talk about it? I asked, refilling her cup. Turns out her father had just been admitted. Heart complications. She'd been writing in a cabin outside the city when she got the call. Drove through the storm with windshield wipers that barely worked and a gas tank running on fumes. She was running on fear, caffeine withdrawals, and sheer stubbornness. I am supposed to have a manuscript to my editor by Friday, she said, wiping her nose with a tissue that had seen better days. But I can't think about plot holes when my dad's heart might have actual holes, you know? I did know. Lost my own father 3 years ago to cancer. Didn't tell her that some stories are for later, when trust has been built cup by cup. So I did what any decent human would do. I stayed, brought her fresh coffee every hour, listened as she ranted about her publisher's deadlines, about how her last book had tanked, about how she was scared her father would die thinking she was a failure. What do you write? I asked around 2 a.m. when the hospital had settled into its overnight hush. Romance novels, she said, then immediately looked embarrassed. I know. Not exactly literary fiction. Hey, I read romance. Give me a good meet cute over pretentious literary symbolism any day. She laughed, the first real laugh I'd heard from her. What's your favorite trope? Enemies to lovers, I said without hesitation. I like it when people have to work for their happy ending. Mine's found family, she said softly. I like stories where people choose each other. When she fell asleep on my shoulder at 3 a.m., I let her. Her hair smelled like rain and something floral jasmine, maybe. I watched her breathe, watched the stress lines smooth from her forehead, and thought about how strange it was that 12 hours ago, this woman didn't exist in my world. By day 3, we had a routine. I'd bring her coffee, she'd read me passages from her latest manuscript. Her father, sweet old Mr. Bailey, with his silver mustache and eyes exactly like hers, would pretend not to notice. The way she smiled at me. Rachel makes the best coffee in Denver, Juliana told him on day 2, and something warm unfurled in my chest at the way she said my name. She's pretty too, Mr. Bailey said, with a wink that made Juliana turn red and me grin into my cup. The manuscript was good. Really good. A story about a woman who inherits a lighthouse and falls in love with the Coast Guard captain who keeps trying to cite her for safety violations. Juliana's voice when she read was different from her speaking voice, richer, more confident. This was her element. Your editor's crazy if they don't love this, I told her. My editor's crazy, period, she said. But she's also the only one who'll put up with my missed deadlines and panic attacks. But when the doctor said Mr. Bailey would need another week of observation, Juliana panicked. I can't keep sleeping in waiting room chairs. My back's killing me, and I'm starting to hallucinate from lack of real sleep. I've been thinking about this for hours, turning it over like a problem I couldn't solve. I barely knew this woman, but I knew her favorite coffee order, oat milk latte with an extra shot and a sprinkle of cinnamon. I knew she bit her lip when she was thinking. I knew she had a scar on her left hand from a childhood accident involving a broken mason jar and a rescue attempt on a trapped butterfly. You can stay with me, I said, the words tumbling out before I could lose my nerve. She stared at me. I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking, I'm offering. I have a pull-out couch, and it's closer to the hospital than any hotel. Plus, unlimited coffee. I don't know anything about you, she said, but I could see her wavering. I'm 28. I've owned the grind for 3 years. I have a cat named Hemingway who's probably wondering where I've been. I've never murdered anyone, and I make excellent breakfast. I paused. And I think you're the most interesting person I've met in years. She was quiet for so long, I thought she'd refuse. Then, okay, but I'm buying groceries. Deal. My apartment was small, just a studio with a view of the Rockies when the weather was clear. But when Juliana stepped inside, hugging her duffel bag like a shield, it suddenly felt different, warmer. She eyed my espresso machine like it was a shrine. You're my hero, she said, and I felt that unfurling warmth again. I made her a latte. With foam art a heart, because I'm apparently that obvious. She repaid me by cooking dinner, or trying to. We burned the garlic bread, overcooked the pasta, laughed until our stomachs hurt when the smoke alarm went off twice. I should have warned you, she said, waving a dish towel at the ceiling. I'm a disaster in the kitchen. Good thing I like disasters, I said, and she shot me a look that made my pulse skip. We ordered pizza instead. Sat on my couch with slices balanced on paper plates, her manuscript spread between us. She read me the lighthouse scene, the moment when the heroine realizes the captain's not trying to shut her down, he's trying to keep her safe. That's beautiful, I said. The way you write about fear and protection, how sometimes they look the same from the outside. You get it, she said, and there was surprise in her voice. Most people think romance is all fluff and happy endings. It is happy endings, but the best ones are earned. When the power went out, because of course it did, this was turning into one of her novels. We huddled under blankets. My apartment got cold fast without the heater. She pressed against my side, and I could feel the warmth of her through her sweater. Tell me something true, she said in the darkness. I haven't been on a date in 8 months, I said. I keep telling myself I'm too busy with the cafe, but really? I'm scared of letting someone in and having them leave. Why would they leave? Because I'm boring? I get up at 4 a.m. to prep for the cafe. I read before bed. I knit. I have strong opinions about coffee bean origins. I'm not exactly party material. Her fingers found mine under the blanket. I think you're perfect material. That's when her phone buzzed. A name flashed on the screen. Mark. Her whole body went rigid. Shit, she whispered. I felt her withdraw before she even moved. The phone kept buzzing, and each vibration seemed to pull her further away from me. You don't have to answer, I said. He'll just keep calling. Her voice was different now, smaller. He always does, Mark, her ex. The kind of guy who thought no was a negotiation. She'd left him a year ago, but he'd never let go. Texts, calls, turning up at her sightings uninvited. And now, you in Denver? Let's talk. I watched her face in the phone's glow, saw the fear creep in around her eyes, the way her breathing got shallow. This wasn't just an annoying ex. This was something darker. How does he know you're in Denver? I don't know. Maybe he saw my social media post about my dad. She scrolled through his messages. Look at this. 27 texts today. He's been calling the hospital. I read over her shoulder. The messages started sweet concern about her father, wanting to be there for her. But they got progressively more demanding, more possessive. The last one made my stomach turn. Stop ignoring me. We're meant to be together. You know it. I know it. Stop playing games. This isn't normal, I said. I know. She was crying again, but quietly this time. I've been dealing with this for months. I moved, changed my number. He always finds me. I took her phone, blocked him. Then I did something reckless. I kissed her forehead and said, he doesn't get to scare you. Not here. She kissed me back, not on the forehead. On the mouth, soft and desperate and tasting like coffee and hope. When we broke apart, she pressed her face against my neck. I'm so tired of being afraid, she whispered. Then don't be. Not tonight. We didn't sleep together, not that night. But we slept together, curled up on my couch with Hemingway purring between us. I woke up every few hours just to make sure she was still there, still breathing, still safe. The next morning, I made her my signature breakfast, French toast with cinnamon and fresh berries. She ate like she hadn't tasted food in days. This is amazing, she said around a mouthful. Where did you learn to cook like this? YouTube and necessity. When you work alone most of the time, you either learn to cook or live on cereal. She laughed, and I realized I was already addicted to that sound. I live on cereal and takeout and whatever I can microwave. We're going to fix that, I said. Cooking lesson tonight. I warned you I'm a disaster. I like disasters, remember? We spent the morning at the hospital. Mr. Bailey was doing better sitting up and complaining about the food. When they bringing me some of that coffee? He asked when I walked in. Dad, you're not supposed to have caffeine, Juliana said. Just a sip for medicinal purposes. I made him a decaf that tasted like the real thing. He winked at me when Juliana wasn't looking. That afternoon, we went to the grocery store. I watched her navigate the aisles like she was in a foreign country. She picked up a package of pre-made cookie dough and studied it like it contained the secrets of the universe. I usually just buy the ingredients and make them from scratch, I said. From scratch? Like from flour and eggs and stuff? Yeah, it's not hard. Want me to show you? We spent 2 hours in the baking aisle while I explained the difference between baking powder and baking soda. She took notes on her phone like she was researching a novel. You're really into this, she said. I like taking care of people. It's why I opened the cafe. There's something about providing comfort, you know? A warm drink on a cold day. A place to sit and think. It matters. Is that why you're helping me? I considered lying, giving her some casual answer about being a good person, but something about her made me want to tell the truth. At first, maybe, but now? I stopped walking and turned to face her. Now I'm helping you because I'm falling for you. And I know that's crazy because we just met, but there it is. She stared at me for a long moment. Then she kissed me right there in the grocery store between the flour and the chocolate chips. When she pulled back, she was smiling. I'm falling for you too, she said. And you're right, it's crazy. That night, I taught her how to make chocolate chip cookies. She was terrible at it, added salt instead of sugar to the first batch, burned the second batch, dropped the third batch on the floor. But she was laughing. And I was laughing, and Hemingway was batting at fallen chocolate chips. This is hopeless, she said, flour in her hair and chocolate on her cheek. Nothing's hopeless. Here, let me show you. I moved behind her, put my hands over hers on the mixing spoon. Feel the consistency. It should be smooth, but not runny. She leaned back against me, and I could smell her shampoo. Like this? Perfect. I kissed her neck, and she made a small sound that went straight to my chest. You're a fast learner. I have a good teacher. We ate the cookies warm from the oven, sitting on my kitchen counter. She told me about her books she'd written. 7 so far, but only 4 had been published. The others were learning experiences, she said with air quotes. What's your favorite one? I asked. The one I'm working on now. It's different from the others. More personal. How so? She was quiet for a moment. It's about a woman who's been hurt before. She's scared to trust anyone. But then she meets someone who makes her feel safe, and she has to decide if love is worth the risk. Sounds like a good story. I hope so. I hope it has a happy ending. I kissed her then, properly this time. She tasted like chocolate and possibility. When we broke apart, she pressed her forehead against mine. I want to stay here forever. She said, in this moment, in this kitchen, with you. You can, I said, for as long as you want. But forever lasted exactly 3 days. 3 days of hospital visits and cooking lessons and falling asleep tangled together on my couch. 3 days of feeling like maybe, just maybe, I'd found my person. The pounding on my door came at midnight, heavy, insistent, angry. Juliana, I know you're in there. She froze beside me, the color draining from her face. It's him. How did he find you? I don't know. Her voice was rising, panic setting in. He's not supposed to be here. He's not supposed to know where I am. The pounding got louder. Open the door, Juliana. We need to talk. I grabbed my phone too. Call 911, but she caught my wrist. Wait, if you call the police, he'll just leave. He's done this before. He's smart about it. So what do we do? I don't know. I'm sorry, Rachel. I'm so sorry I brought this to your door. She was crying now, and I was scared. But I was also angry. This man was terrorizing the woman I was falling in love with. He was making her feel unsafe in the one place she should feel protected. I grabbed a cast iron skillet from the kitchen. Look, I'm a barista, not Rambo, but it was the heaviest thing I could find. But before I could even think about what to do with it, Juliana yanked me back. He's dangerous, she whispered. He put me in the hospital once, said it was an accident, but ... The pounding stopped. We waited, barely breathing, for 10 minutes. Then I heard a car door slam and an engine start. He's gone, I said. For now. We called the police anyway. They took a report, but without any actual crime committed, there wasn't much they could do. File for a restraining order, the officer suggested. Keep records of everything. I didn't sleep that night. Just held Juliana while she shook and jumped at every sound. When morning came, we found out why Mark had left so suddenly. My cafe's front window was shattered. Spray painted on the glass in red letters, mine. I stood in front of my ruined cafe, coffee crunching under my feet, and felt something shift inside me. This wasn't just about protecting Juliana anymore. This was about protecting everything I'd built, everything I cared about. I'm calling the police, I said. He'll just deny it, say he was never here. Maybe, but I have security cameras. I'd installed them 6 months ago after a rash of break-ins in the neighborhood. Cheap ones, but they worked. And there, clear as day, was Mark's face illuminated by the streetlight as he threw a brick through my window. Got you, you son of a bitch, I muttered. But catching him on camera was just the beginning. Juliana dug through her phone, her computer, old emails. She had a year's worth of evidence threats, voicemails, unwanted gifts delivered to her apartment. a pattern of escalation that painted a clear picture of stalking. I never put it all together before, she said, spreading printouts across my kitchen table. I kept thinking each incident was isolated, but look at this. She was right. Taken separately, each text or call might seem like the desperate attempts of a heartbroken ex. But together, they told the story of a man who couldn't accept no for an answer. We need to take this to the police, I said. They won't care. They'll say it's a domestic dispute. They'll care when they see my broken window and the security footage. We spent the morning at the police station. The detective who took our statement was a tired-looking woman in her 50s, who'd probably seen this story 100 times before. You have enough here for a restraining order, she said. Maybe charges for vandalism and harassment. But I have to warn you, men like this don't usually stop because of a piece of paper. So what do we do? Juliana asked. Be careful. Vary your routines. Don't go anywhere alone. And if he contacts you again, call us immediately. That night, Juliana couldn't stop pacing. She'd walk to the window, peer through the blinds, then walk back to the couch. Repeat. I finally caught her hand and pulled her down beside me. He's not out there, I said. How do you know? Because if he was, Hemingway would be hiding. Animals sense these things. She looked at my cat, who was sprawled on his back in a patch of lamplight, completely relaxed. Hemingways are early. Warning system, best security system money can buy. She laughed, but it was shaky. I keep thinking about what that detective said. About the piece of paper not stopping him. It's not just a piece of paper. It's a legal document. And we have evidence now, a pattern. That matters. I'm scared, she said simply. I know. But you're not alone anymore. We're going to figure this out. She curled up against me and I stroked her hair. Tell me about your lighthouse story, I said. The part where the heroine realizes she's not alone. Chapter 18, she said automatically. She's been trying to fix the lighthouse by herself for months. She's exhausted, and the town council is talking about condemning the building. She's sitting on the rocks, watching the sunset, thinking about giving up. And then the captain appears. What does he say? He doesn't say anything at first, just sits beside her. And then he says, I brought tools. And she realizes he's not there to cite her or shut her down. He's there to help. I brought tools, I said. What? I brought tools. To help you fix this. She kissed me then, soft and grateful. I love you, she said against my lips. I love you too. It was the first time either of us had said it. The words hung in the air like a promise, like a commitment to see this through together. The next morning, I reopened the cafe with a sheet of plywood where my window used to be. My regular customers were horrified. Mrs. Chun brought me soup. Jake from the bookstore next door offered to lend me his baseball bat. The whole neighborhood was rallying around me, and I felt a surge of gratitude for this community I'd built. What happened? Miguel asked when he came in for his shift, his arms still in a sling. Long story, but I need you to keep an eye out for a guy matching this description. I showed him Mark's photo from Juliana's phone. If you see him, call the police. Don't try to be a hero. This about your girlfriend? Yeah, she's good people. I like her. Me too. Juliana was at the hospital with her father, but she texted me updates throughout the day. Dad's doing better. Might go home tomorrow. You okay? Fine. Busy day. People are being amazing. I love you. I love you too. That evening, we made a plan. Juliana had a book reading scheduled for the next night at the local bookstore. We discussed canceling it, but she didn't want to let fear control her life. I'll be there, I said. Front row. And I'll have Jake call the police if Mark shows up. What if he doesn't show up? What if he just keeps playing games? Then we keep living our lives. We don't let him win. The bookstore was packed. I'd never seen Juliana in her element before, confident, articulate, making the audience laugh and gasp in all the right places. She read from her lighthouse story, the scene where the heroine and the captain work together to restore the lighthouse's beam. Love isn't about finding someone perfect, she read. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be better. Someone who sees your broken pieces and helps you put them back together. She looked at me when she said it, and I felt that familiar. Warmth spread through my chest. During the Q&A, someone asked about her writing process. I write about love because I believe in it, she said. I believe in the power of connection. I believe that the right person can change your whole life. That's when Mark walked in. I saw him before Juliana did. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of smile that probably charmed people before they realized what he was. He was carrying a bouquet of roses, red ones, already wilting. I caught Jake's eye and nodded toward the back of the store. He immediately went to the phone. And that's why I think romance novels are important, Juliana was saying. They show us that love is possible, even after heartbreak, even after someone breaks your heart. Mark called out from the back. The room went quiet. I saw Juliana's face go pale, but she kept her composure. Especially then, she said evenly, sometimes the best love stories begin after the worst ones end. What about loyalty? Mark pushed forward through the crowd. What about commitment? What about not giving up on someone just because things get hard? There's a difference between commitment and obsession, Juliana said. Her voice was steady, but I could see her hands shaking. True love means respecting someone's choices. Even when you don't like them. You made a choice, Mark said. You chose me. You said you loved me. I did love you. But love isn't ownership. Love doesn't mean I owe you my whole life. The crowd was getting uncomfortable. People were shifting in their seats, looking around for exits. I stood up, ready to intervene, when the police walked in. Mark Henderson, one of the officers, called out, "We need to talk to you." What happened next was like something from one of Juliana's novels. Mark saw the police and panicked. He rushed toward the front of the store, roses scattering behind. "Him, Juliana," he shouted. "You called the police on me? After everything we meant to each other?" "Sir, step back," the officer said, but Mark wasn't listening. "You're mine," he yelled. "You've always been mine. Stop pretending otherwise." He lunged toward the front table where Juliana was sitting. I moved without thinking, stepping between them. He knocked me sideways, sending a display of books flying. "Get away from her," I shouted. "Who the hell are you?" He grabbed my arm, and I could smell alcohol on his breath. "You're nobody. You're just some rebound." "I'm the woman she chose," I said, pulling free. "I'm the one she comes home to. I'm the one she trusts." That's when he swung at me. I ducked. All those years of dodging flying coffee cups from my old job paid off, and he missed. But the motion threw him off balance, and he stumbled into the police officer's arms. "Mark Henderson, you're under arrest for violating a restraining order, harassment, and assault." As they cuffed him, he kept screaming about betrayal and true love, and how Juliana was making the biggest mistake of her life. The whole time, she just sat there, watching him with something like pity in her eyes. "Are you okay?" I asked when they'd finally gotten him out of the store. "I'm perfect," she said, and she meant it. The next few weeks were a blur of police statements and court dates. Mark was charged with stalking, harassment, vandalism, and assault. The judge issued a permanent restraining order and sentenced him to 6 months in jail plus mandatory counseling. "It's over," Juliana said when we walked out of the courthouse. "It's really over? How do you feel?" "Free, scared, relieved, grateful." She stopped walking and turned to me. "But mostly grateful. For you, for us." My cafe reopened with a new window and a new mural painted by a local artist. It showed a lighthouse beam cutting through storm clouds with the words, "Safe Harbor," written in elegant script below. Juliana cried when she saw it. "You did this? For me. I did it for us." Mr. Bailey made a full recovery and became one of my best customers. He'd come in every Tuesday for his decaf special and tell anyone who would listen about how I'd saved his daughter's life. I didn't save her life, I'd always protest. "Maybe not," he'd say, "but you saved her heart, and that's just as important." A year later, we returned to Denver General. Mr. Bailey was getting a routine checkup, and Juliana's latest book, Lighthouse Story, was sitting at number 3 on the bestseller list. The dedication read, "To Rachel, who taught me that love is both shelter and adventure." I had a ring burning a hole in my pocket. I'd been carrying it for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. But as I sat in that same waiting room where we'd met, I realized there was no such thing as the perfect moment. There was only now and the woman I loved and the courage to ask for forever. "Coffee?" I asked, pulling out my thermos. "Always," she said, smiling. I handed her a cup, the same blend from that first night. She took a sip, closed her eyes in appreciation, then opened them to find me on one knee. "Rachel?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Juliana Bailey," I said, pulling out the ring. "You walked into my life seeking caffeine and comfort. You stayed for safety and understanding. But what if I gave you forever instead?" The ring was simple, a solitaire diamond on a white gold band. Nothing fancy, but it caught the light like a promise. "I know we haven't talked about this," I continued, my voice shaking. "I know it's crazy to propose in a hospital waiting room, but this is where our story started. This is where I fell in love with your laugh, your strength, your terrible taste in vending machine coffee. This is where I learned that lightning can strike twice, and the second time is even more beautiful." She was crying now, happy tears that made her eyes look like sea glass. "I love you," I said. "I love your midnight writing sessions and your burnt toast. I love the way you bite your lip when you're thinking. I love that you see the world as a romance novel, full of possibility and happy endings. I love that you chose me, and I want to choose you back every day for the rest of our lives." "Yes," she said, laughing through her tears. "Yes, yes, obviously yes." I slipped the ring onto her finger, and she pulled me up for a kiss that tasted like coffee and joy and the promise of tomorrow. "I love you too," she whispered against my lips. "I love that you make me feel safe. I love that you believe in happy endings. I love that you saved me from bad hospital coffee and even worse decisions. I love that you let me," I said. When we broke apart, I realized the waiting room had gone quiet. Everyone was staring at us, other patients, nurses, the receptionist. And then, slowly, they started to applaud. "Congratulations," called out an elderly man with his arm in a sling. "About time," shouted a nurse from behind the desk. Mr. Bailey appeared from the direction of the cardiac unit, grinning from ear to ear. "Did I miss the proposal?" "You have perfect timing," Juliana said, running to hug him. "I've been waiting for this for months," he said, winking at me over her shoulder. "She's been planning it since December." "Dad," Juliana protested. "Planning what?" I asked. "How to get you to propose." "She's been dropping hints for weeks." I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. I'm not great with hints. "Lucky for you, I'm not great with subtlety," Juliana said. "I was about to just ask you myself. I'm glad I beat you to it." We got married 6 months later in the garden behind the bookstore where we'd had our first real crisis. Jake officiated. He'd gotten ordained online specifically for our wedding. The whole neighborhood was there, along with Mr. Bailey, my parents, and Juliana's writing group. I wore a simple white dress and carried a bouquet of wildflowers. Juliana wore a navy blue suit that made her eyes look like storm clouds. We'd written our own vows, of course. Rachel, Juliana said, her voice carrying across the garden. You taught me that love isn't about finding someone to complete you. It's about finding someone to adventure with. Someone who makes you braver, kinder, more yourself. You are my safe harbor and my greatest adventure. You are my best friend and my favorite person. You are the love story I never knew I was looking for. Juliana, I said, holding her hands tight. You walked into my life like a storm and stayed. Like sunshine. You taught me that love is both shelter and excitement. You are my daily miracle, my favorite chaos, my most precious routine. You are the reason I believe in happy endings. You are my happy ending. When Jake pronounced us married, the whole garden erupted in cheers. We kissed as rose petals fell around us, thrown by Mr. Bailey and my mother and Miguel and everyone who'd watched us fall in love. At the reception, Juliana's publisher stood up to make a toast. To the woman who writes about love, she said, and the woman who taught her what it really means. To Rachel and Juliana, everyone chorused, raising their glasses. That was 3 years ago. We live in a bigger apartment now with a proper kitchen and a home office for Juliana's writing. Hemingway has been joined by a rescue dog named Austin who thinks she's a cat. The cafe's thriving. We've expanded into the space next door and added a small bookstore section featuring local authors. Juliana's books are always prominently displayed with a small sign that says, written by the owner's wife. She's published 2 more novels since we got married. Both bestsellers, both dedicated to me. Her latest is about a coffee shop owner who falls in love with a customer during a snowstorm. It's fiction, she insists whenever anyone asks. But she always winks when she says it. Mr. Bailey comes by every Tuesday for his decaf special and to play chess with the regulars. He's become something of a cafe mascot, holding court in the corner booth and telling stories about the old days. He's also become my biggest supporter, introducing me to strangers as the woman who saved my daughter's life. I didn't save her life, I always protest. Maybe not, he says, the same response every time, but you saved her heart. And that's just as important. Mark was released from jail after serving 4 months. He violated his restraining order once showed up at one of Juliana's book signings in Boulder. The police arrested him before he could even get inside the building. He's serving another year now with mandatory therapy and a more restrictive order. We don't talk about him much anymore. He's become a footnote in our story, not a chapter. Sometimes I think about that night in the hospital waiting room when I offered a stranger a cup of coffee and accidentally changed the course of both our lives. How different things would have been if I'd minded my own business, if I'd let her. Drink that terrible vending machine coffee, if I'd been too scared to offer her a place to stay. But I didn't. I chose courage over comfort. I chose connection over safety, and Juliana chose me back. We're talking about having kids now. Juliana jokes that our children will have a great origin story. Your parents met in a hospital waiting room and fell in love over coffee. But she says it with such warmth, such certainty, that I know she's already imagining our future children, our future grandchildren, our future together. What if we have a daughter? She asked last night, curled up against me in bed. What if she inherits your coffee genes and my writing genes? God help us, I said, a caffeinated novelist. The world isn't ready. She could own a bookstore cafe, sell coffee and books and dreams. She could revolutionize the industry. She could change the world. She could, I agreed. But first, she has to exist. We're working on it, Juliana. Sighed, kissing my shoulder. We are. We're working on it, all the kids, the businesses, the life we're building together. Some days are harder than others. Juliana still has panic attacks sometimes. usually triggered by unexpected knocks on the door or strange men who look too much like Mark. I've learned to recognize the signs, to be her anchor when the waves get too high, and some days are magical. Like yesterday, when a young woman came into the cafe looking lost and scared. She'd just moved to Denver, didn't know anyone, was starting over after a bad breakup. I made her my signature latte and listened while she told me her story. When she left, she said, "Thank you for making me feel less alone." That's what we do here, I told her. We make sure no one drinks bad coffee alone. Later, I told Juliana about the interaction. "You're going to change that woman's life," she said. "Just like you changed mine." I just made her coffee. You made her feel seen. You made her feel worth caring about. That's how it starts. Maybe she's right. Maybe love always starts with small acts of kindness, a cup of coffee, a place to sleep, a willingness to stay when things get scary. Tonight, as I write this, Juliana is at her desk working on her next novel. Austin is asleep at her feet, and Hemingway is purring on my lap. The apartment smells like the vanilla candles Juliana loves and the fresh coffee I ground this morning. Through the window, I can see the lights of Denver twinkling like stars, and beyond them, the mountains standing guard over our small corner of the world. This is our life now, not perfect, but ours. Built on trust and coffee and the crazy courage it takes to love someone completely. Built on the belief that some storms are worth weathering, that some risks are worth taking, that some love stories are worth fighting for. I used to think I was just a coffee shop owner, someone who provided fuel for other people's adventures, but Juliana taught me that I was wrong. I'm not just providing coffee, I'm providing hope. I'm providing connection. I'm providing a place where tired people can rest, where lonely people can find warmth, where broken people can begin to heal. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, you provide coffee to someone who changes your whole life. Sometimes lightning does strike twice. Sometimes the second time is even more beautiful than the first. Sometimes a simple cup of coffee is the beginning of everything.